being a human being is also about constantly questioning your position. And I think people do very little of that on a daily basis. And I think a judge should be a person with a greater degree of self-reflection. And unfortunately for countries and for society, for world society in general, the world is run by lawyers, economists, journalists, and politicians, all of whom have very little capacity for self-reflection. Unfortunately, if they grew a little appetite for self-reflection, we would have a very peaceful world and a just country.
Yeah.
That's what the judiciary must do. I don't think it's all lost. And I think we must look at how we appoint judges and who becomes a judge so that we don't just get dropouts from the legal profession just simply because they want a pension, lifelong pension. We need to get people who are good, who are committed to it. And I don't think that's too much to ask. Yeah, I think that's, but I think with the Chief Justice Maya, I do think as a person, because I know her, I hope the system doesn't swallow her into its belly.
The same way it swallowed the ANC.
It can swallow you, it can swallow me. That's why I say you need to constantly check yourself in life, the position. Yeah. In life, they say it's not enough to be correct. You must constantly check your correctness. I constantly check even the views I express because it's important to know that you could be wrong.
No, true. As a professional journalist, I think I'll do some self-introspection into my profession.
Well, journalism is an interesting part because I was saying in another interview, when you tell our journalists that, you tend to serve white narratives. Say, no, no white person has ever told me what to write. And I say to them, that's exactly the problem. They no longer have to tell you.
Because they control the media. They control
where your bread is buttered.
Yeah.
You sit with your little friends in Rosebank in those pseudo non-racial restaurants and you want to please your white friend different from us. They've got you already. You've already part of their narrative. They don't need to tell you what to write. You get into their newsroom. Who owns it? You know what will make you get promoted. It's disliking Muzi, disliking Julius, disliking Zuma, disliking black people will get you far. So they don't need to tell you. That's the problem of a powerful system. It doesn't need to tell you what to do. You know what to do. You know what will serve your interests if you want a promotion.
Yeah.
You know who you must hate and who you must like and what views to express. And so they don't need to tell you.
Yeah.
And that's why in journalism itself, it's an important tool of both freedom and repression. You must just decide which part are you.
I think I'm glad to be on the part of the left because I'm with the EFF.
You're very lucky. It's a moment I said in history you must appreciate that you are in an environment that keeps checking your conscience. And you are lucky. Others are doing nothing. They move from the newsroom to eat sushi at lunch with their white and other friends and their non, and they have no time to look at themselves about the lie they live. So you are lucky. You live in an environment that constantly encourages you to be critical. Others are not. They're not bad people, but they live in an environment that is controlled by others, by capital. When you control capital, you control people's thinking because they want to survive. And so because they want to survive, they tend to do and parrot what you like so that they can keep their bonds, keep their lifestyles, until black people control the economy.
The means of production.
The means of production. We will always be subservient to other interests, even in our private lives. Very, very few people are prepared to go hungry and starve and lose a house just because they want to express their views. Many people think I'm a bit odd.
Greetings, everyone. I hope you're fine. I hope you are doing well. And I will appreciate if you can just smash the subscribe button, that like button, like never before. I just want to begin by saying Indeed, they should not tell you anything, but instead, you have to remind yourself. Why it has to be like that? As long as black people are not engaged in the economy or involved in economy, they will always be desperate. I just want to say the most important thing is to love yourself. I always talk about loving yourself because I believe that loving yourself is the most important thing, or one of the most important things in everybody's life. Just loving yourself. That is why even when you read or go through the ancient writings, there's a saying by the Messiah, the greatest revolutionary of all times, according to me, that you need to love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's not only about loving your neighbor. You can love your neighbor, but you have to love your neighbor as you love yourself. That is why loving yourself is very important. But there are consequences of not loving yourself. And one of the consequences of not loving yourself is to sell out. You end up selling out. It's easy to sell your brother out. Why? Because you don't love yourself. Sometimes it's not about being greedy. Sometimes it's not about being desperate. But sometimes it's all about not loving yourself. So sometimes you can resist certain things, certain temptations, just because you love yourself. Not because you cannot be tempted, not because you cannot fall, but sometimes you can be protected just because you love yourself. When you watch television or read newspapers or go through social media every day, whenever they talk about people who are corrupt, they're talking about your father, they're talking about your uncle, they're talking about your brother, they're talking about your sister. Those are the people who appear on front pages. These are the people you always see on television. But whenever they talk about people who are doing good things, good investments, good initiatives, people who are for other people, you don't see your brothers in most cases. You don't see your mothers in most cases. It's because it's the system. But when you dig deep to find out who is behind this story, you will be shocked to find out it's your brother, it's your sister, it's your uncle. Why? Because it's easy to sell out, because you're working for this company, so you have to try by all means to please this company, because in these companies you are being told about the agenda that you need to follow, even though sometimes they don't have to tell you directly, but indirectly so. But at the end of the day, you have to find a way to figure everything out, that this is what you need to do. That is why these journalists, every time they talk about this one is corrupt, this is what is happening to this organization, they are always happy. They are always excited. And these journalists are always on front. These are our brothers and sisters. But the system is the one that is controlling everything. I'm not saying it's always happening, but in most cases you can tell that there's a problem here. There's a problem of loving yourself. That is why I agree with Advocate Sikhakhane that sometimes they don't need to tell you what to do. you know what to do in order to keep what you have to keep or to get what you need to get. In different companies, this is what is happening. For an example, if you are a shop steward, or even if you're not a shop steward, but if you are that employee who's always working according to the rules of the company, you follow your contract, you don't work unnecessary overtime, you don't want people to take advantage of you. And if the employer knows your stance, even if they won't tell you, but something will happen at the end. Your brothers and sisters will start distancing themselves from you. Sometimes they don't have to be told that they have to distance themselves from you. The reason they distance themselves from you is because they have to appear good to the employer, because now they are also hustling for promotions. They are also hustling for a better payment and etc. So as a result, they start distancing themselves from you because of, not because of maybe your political views and etc., but because you are standing for your rights. You want to be paid accordingly. You want everything to be done according to the terms and conditions of the company, the contract, and etc. So you don't want them to take advantage of you, and which is a good thing. It's a good thing because you don't want people to take advantage of you. And it means that idea may benefit other people as well. But to your brothers and sisters, your colleagues, it might be something which is totally different. So that's why in most cases, you might end up seeing them distancing themselves from you. Why? Because they want to benefit. These are the results of not loving yourself, but not to be harsh, I can say, is as a result of not running economy. Because if you're not running economy, you end up being desperate. Even the things they post on social media, it's all about black people are not good, our brothers and sisters are not good, etc. and etc. Why? It's because they know that their social media platforms are being reviewed as well. They know that very well, that their social media platforms are being reviewed. So that is why, in order for you not to find yourself in trouble, you have to make sure that you are always against your brothers and sisters. I'm not saying it's always happening, but in most cases, it's happening, and it's very painful. And that is why other people are always using social media as a CV. In other words, they have to talk bad about their brothers and sisters because they are hoping that maybe an investor or a sponsor or maybe someone might show up and say, you know what, man, I can give you something. I can give you something. So as a result, you end up selling out. That is why I believe that we need the economy. We need the economy because in order to protect other people, you just have to put them in a safe environment because they can easily sell out. But I just want to say, loving yourself is very important because that would be a sign that indeed you love yourself. I'm not saying media should not expose corruption that is done by black people, our brothers and sisters, and etc. But what I'm saying, they should not be doing so because they want to get promotions, maybe because they want to be on top, because they want to please maybe white supremacy, and so forth and so forth.